This interview is part of the History Heard project. The content of this interview may be used for historical research. However, no part of the video itself may be reproduced without the express written permission of an authorized representative of History Heard. Today is June 25th, 2009 at, what time is it, 1?
This is in Reston, Virginia.
This is an interview with Vint Cerf in Reston, Virginia. He was born on June 23rd, 1943 in New Haven. Back, is there a particular moment that's like funny that stands out as like funny, or I mean everything is memorable, but
well, let's see. The most memorable kinds of experiences that I recall are certain milestones. For one thing, getting the 73 basic document paper done was a pretty big milestone, and we struggled with it for the 6 months that we were working on it. I took the responsibility for the project at DARPA starting in 1976. I joined Bob Kahn and his colleagues at DARPA that year, and the following year I felt it was really important to sort of prove to ourselves that this stuff actually was going to work. We had pairwise experiments linking the packet radio net to the ARPANET or the packet satellite net to the ARPANET, but we'd never actually done a scenario where all three of these nets were in operation at the same time. So on November 22nd, 1977, we did a 3-network demonstration. And the packet radio van going up and down the Bayshore Freeway, radiating packets, and being routed, sort of artificially being forced to go through a gateway into the ARPANET. Their destination was Marina del Rey, USC Information Sciences Institute, but the routing thing was artificially forced so that the packets would go all the way through the ARPANET through an internal satellite hop down to Sweden, Tanum, Sweden, and then to the Norwegian Defense Research Establishment, then by landline, still part of the ARPANET, by landline down to University College London. And then it popped out of the ARPANET at that point, went through another gateway, and into the packet satellite net, which is Intelsat 4A hanging over the Atlantic. The packets went through that network, came down to Etam, West Virginia, to a ground station that was part of the packet satellite net, then through another gateway and into the ARPANET again, all the way across the ARPANET and then down to USC Information Sciences Institute. So the distance between USC ISI and the packet radio van was about 400 miles. But if you actually track how far the packets went, they went through 2 double satellite hops, and they went through 2 satellite hops, back and forth across the Atlantic and back and forth across the United States. It's like 100,000 miles. And it worked. And I remember leaping around saying, it works, like it couldn't possibly have worked. It's just software, right? And anybody who has anything to do with software knows it's a miracle when the software works. So that was a really important milestone, and I had a picture drawn of the topology of the system, and I had it framed, and I sent it to a man named George Heilmeyer, who was at the time the director of DARPA, and it basically said, dear George, I don't think we wasted our money on this one. So 77 was an important milestone. Then comes things like the standardization of the protocols. We went through 4 iterations of these protocols, and so what you're running today is called TCP/IP version 4. Then came a 5-year period of getting the protocol implemented in as many different operating systems as we could. And the rationale for doing that is that we knew that if we wanted to insist that the new protocols be used so that we could now live in a multi-network environment, not just the ARPANET, we would need to eradicate any barriers, any resistance to adopting the new protocols. So we did 2 things. First, we said we are going to make these protocols, the details and information about them, completely and open and available to anyone in the world. Now, remember, this is in the middle of the Cold War.
Yeah.
We have a very severe adversary, the Soviet Union. The fact that we were able to make this technology, which is funded by the Defense Department, completely open is pretty stunning. And I think the reason is that nobody was noticing. I don't think anybody paid any attention. And we didn't ask for permission. We just said, just let it go. Part of the reason we wanted to do that is that we wanted to make it possible to argue that it should be an international standard. And we thought that if there were any barriers, like you can't export it here, or it has a patent on it and you have to get a license, we thought that would be used as an excuse by the computing companies to refuse to adopt and implement this protocol. So we had implementations done for a variety of different operating systems, including Unix and TOPS 10, and well, you don't need to. There's a lot of different IBM operating systems. That took quite a long time to get all of those implementations done and then demonstrated to interwork, which of course, internet is nothing if you don't have interoperability. So it took us until about 1982 to get to that point. At which point we said, okay, it's time to now make sure this thing actually is deployed fully. So we told all of the people who were on any of the nets, the packet satellite, packet radio, or ARPANET, that they had to be running TCP/IP on January 1st, 1983. And so we started a regular process of reminding people that they needed to be switching over to TCP/IP. There were only about 400 computers involved in this switch, and it took a year, and some people weren't doing very much. And at one point during the middle of the year, I noticed that the rate at which we could see people implementing the TCP/IP had plateaued. So I asked the operators of the ARPANET to make a change that would cause only the TCP/IP protocols to be accepted on the net, not the older NCP protocols. And so I basically shut the net down for a day to everyone except the ones who had TCP operating. Of course, everybody screamed and yelled, and the phones were ringing off the hook, and you messed up my email and everything else. I said, I just want to make the point that I can shut off the old protocols, so please pay attention. So we watched, the adoption rate starts to go up again, and then it plateaus somewhere around fall. So I asked the ARPANET guys to shut the NCP protocol capability off for 2 days. Just to get people's attention and remind them that on January 1st that's what we were going to do. When it comes January 1st, and almost everybody made it. Some people didn't, and they begged forgiveness and said, "Can we, hang on for a while longer?" At that point, I had left DARPA. I left sort of in late October, if I'm remembering right. So Bob Kahn wound up having to manage that whole transition process. But my thought was at the time was that we'd basically gotten to where I achieved the objective I was after, which was to get enough of the stuff implemented that we could credibly say it's time to switch over. Besides, I needed to make some more money than I could make with a government salary in order to put 2 kids through college. Your parents can probably appreciate that. So those are the sorts of memorable moments.